No, I don't. Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for this event, for the opportunity to be here. I promise I'll be very brief as possible. So my topic is changing balance in the Middle East and implications for Russia and Iran. Coming to the Middle East, the interesting, I will share briefly points, then we will discuss them. One of the interesting parts of the Middle East for me is this region is in dynamic in different ways. What does it mean? We have one conflict way and one peace way. What does it mean? The region was for the last decades in a turmoil. We had an Arab Spring, collapse some countries coming from Libya, then it spill over to Syria. Then we have increasing role of both regional and non-regional actors coming to rising of Russia's role in Syria and beyond. Then expanding of Turkish zone of influence occupying parts of Syria. Then we had October 7, like not definitely new outline of the region, but definitely there are some shifts. And we have war in Gaza, we have, let's call it third war in Lebanon, and we have direct Israel-Iran confrontation. So from the political perspective, this is the kind of new dimension of confrontation when since April Iran targeted directly Israel. So it's changed the balance and the deterrence tools in the Middle East. When we're talking about the peace, we had Abraham Accords in 2020. So that was a big shift in Israel-Arab world. I'm not talking about Israel-Palestine, I'm talking about Israel-Arab rapprochement. And second, we had a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia in 2023 by Chinese mediation. So we have increasing role of China. So it means that from one hand, we have a dozen of conflicts, and one of colleagues from previous session mentioned that have really different dimensions, like national, local, regional, and global. Like when we have engagement of non-regional actors, when we have such phenomena as ICs, etc. And from another hand, we have a peace track. It means that at least some countries, they have political will to handle these conflict situations, and they can move in two directions simultaneously. Like Iran is in direct confrontation with Israel. At the same time, Iran is handling its relations with Saudi Arabia. So what does it mean, for Russia and Iran, the key challenges and opportunities? And later we may discuss it with my Russian colleague. What do I see is important for Russia from this perspective? For Russia, it's extremely important to secure its positions in Syria. Russia was investing a lot for conflict resolution, to handle even in some internal tensions in Syria. And the possibility of spillover this conflict from Lebanon to Syria will be one of the biggest challenges for Russia. When Russia was working, when Putin and Trump were working on the zones of de-escalation, and they actually agreed on some zone of de-escalation, when Russia took into account Israeli concerns, that was the big shift in this case. It means that Russia was interested to secure the new status quo in Syria. And now, when we see that Israel has increased its targets against Iranian positions in Syria, pro-Iranian different units, it means that somehow conflict from the Lebanon may spill over to Syria. And this is why Russia may be engaged probably somehow to secure this part. Again, the southern part of Syria. And the second point, why for Russia is important to secure a new status quo in Syria. From Moscow's perspective, this direct engagement in Syria was a growth point for Russia in the Middle East. Then Russia expanded a zone of influence in the Mediterranean. The second track was Russian attempts to enlarge its presence in Red Sea. So the core of Russian interest in the Middle East that allowed Russia to protect its interest, to deter somehow non-regional actors and keep them far away its borders, is securing the current status quo in Syria. And what is the second point, what's important for Russia, is to create a new deterrence point beyond its borders. What does it mean? From Russian perspective, the conflict and the direct confrontation with the West is very close to its border. Like even inside Russia, when there are some permissions from Western countries to strike deep into Russian territory. It means that the conflict is not close to Russian borders, so it's coming and shifting inside Russia properly. From Russian perspective, and the same as with Iranian perspective, both of them should shift away the conflict zone as far as the border as is possible. So it means that maybe Russia may instrumentalize or create some new alliances with different actors in the Middle East that will allow Russia to deter US and its allies far from Russian borders and to allocate Western forces and shift them from Ukraine to other parts of the region. What does it mean for Iran? Of course, and obviously, the key priority for Iran is to protect its axis of resistance and to continue its military build-up. Weakened Hamas and Hezbollah were the closest Iranian allies to Israeli border. And the problem is that Iran was again interested to keep the conflict zone far from its border, but close to Israeli border. And now Israel, step by step, is detaching both alliances and shifting to Iran properly. And of course, for Iran it's extremely important to secure its position in Syria as a transit zone. Iran was using Syria for the last decades to transfer its weapon, military munition, to pump up its allies both in Lebanon and in Gaza. And the problem is when Israel now actually is trying to cut off any possible supplies, so it means that maybe Iran will try to engage Russia, from this perspective, to secure the status quo. Because from Russian perspective, securing status quo in Syria is important to prevent any destabilizing processes. From Iranian perspective, it's important to keep this transfer corridors. The second one is important for Iran, and the key implications is the arms race. So here we may see the purchase of air defense systems from Russia. So we don't have any proofs, but we know that there are some discussions coming to S-400 surface-to-air defense missile system. Next is aircraft, Su-35, and Iran definitely is interested in improving the development of new missiles, because before the Ukraine conflict, Iran was able to provide the quantity, but maybe not quality. And after the Ukraine war, when Russia actually modernizes, for example, Shaheeds, now they're a completely different type of weapon. So this is not the same Shaheed as Russia was using in Ukraine during its initial stage. The second challenge for Iran is to prevent creating regional alliances against Iran. For decades, there were different conversations on Middle Eastern NATO or something like that. And obviously that was impossible to establish in such a complicated area. But what's interesting, during the first Iranian attack against Israel in April this year, different countries, let's call them 3+3, 3 regional, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Arab Emirates, and 3 non-regional, France, US, and Great Britain, they acted together. And their deterrence somehow and mitigated the impact of Iranian strikes. It means that the mechanism of ensuring air defense and ensure security in this particular term, they've already established and they've tested it. So it means maybe there is no Middle Eastern NATO because it's complicated to establish in the short-term run. But the multilateral cooperation that might be aimed somehow against Iran is already exists. The third is, what is the difference between Russian and Iranian approach? I mean, in terms of the implications of the Middle Eastern conflict. I told you Arab Emirates of Saudi Arabia. Is the possible spillover of the Middle Eastern conflict to South Caucasus? When we are talking with Iranian colleagues, they raise their concerns that actually, from an Israeli perspective, the South Caucasus may be an important region in order to deter Iran, to shift the conflict from Israeli borders to Iranian borders. And this is why Israel is continuing to supply weapons to Azerbaijan. When Israel is stating that they are in the war in 7 different fronts, at the same time we see like an increasing numbers of cargoes from Uda and Tel Aviv to Baku airport with Israeli military munition and arms. But from Russian perspective, these two regions may be not so be connected. From Iran perspective, it's extremely important. This is why when we move to Israeli foreign policy doctrine, they call it new periphery strategy. They are creating a deterrent circles around Iran. And Azerbaijan is one of these key points in the South Caucasian deterrent circle. And I'm very close to that. Key challenge not only for Russia and Iran, but for Russia-Iran cooperation. I think after Trump, all Russia's new alliances may be tested. And one of these alliances may be Russia-Iran. Obviously, Iran and Russia, they are competitors in different regions, coming from Syria to the South Caucasus. Obviously, their interests do not coincide. And even Iran ambassador to Armenia mentioned that actually Iran and Russia are not allies in the South Caucasus. But the problem is, Iran and Russia were working for at least 2 years to sign a strategic partnership agreement. It's about not only military, but technical cooperation and wider, like beyond this, coming to new global world order, etc. And maybe this kind of alliances might be tested by a new U.S. administration to detach them. The same is with different type of U.S., Russia, North Korea alliance. This is maybe not alliance, but there is a cooperation in the very strategic spheres and dimensions. The same is with Russia-China cooperation. So, and from U.S. perspective, that may be relevant to try to detach all these different types of alliances. For example, the same is with a multilateralism, as colleagues were talking before. Like we have Eurasian Economic Union, and actually Iran has signed in December last year a free trade zone agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union, and hope that it will work since the beginning of next year. We have Iran and BRICS, Iran and China Cooperation Organization, etc. So this is might be the biggest challenge for both for Russia and for Iran. I mean, the attempts of the U.S. to test this new kind of alliances. Thank you.